This is the Trump administration's strongest action against Moscow yet. So, has the president changed his tune on Russia? Let's go to my chrome-plated party panel. It's former State Department spokesperson and Fox News contributor Marie Harf, author of GOP GPS, Evan Siegfried, and columnist at The Federalist and author of The Social Justice Warrior Handbook, Lisa DePasquale. Evan, good move?
It's a good start. I think that the president did something that many people did not expect him to do, which is expel Russian diplomats who are actually spies and engaging in aggressive intelligence gathering operations. And that means turning assets and manipulating them into giving up secrets. So the president still needs to go further. As his new national security advisor, John Bolton, has said, expulsions alone, they don't serve as a deterrent. Vladimir Putin, if we do not do more, will continue to assassinate people who he does not like in countries across the world. So how should President Trump react? Impose strict and new sanctions on Russia for what it's been doing. And he can turn this into a big win and take part of the cloud of the Russia investigation off of him if he says at a press conference, you know, I've been trying the carrot approach for 15 months as president. It has clearly not worked. Now it's time for the stick when he announces the sanctions. And I think a lot of Americans would respond to that and say, okay, that's what you were doing. That's why you had not criticized Vladimir Putin. And if he does that and criticizes Vladimir Putin in that press conference when announcing sanctions, it's a big win for the White House, and it will restore favorability with many Americans in them.
Marie, time for a stick?
I just don't think President Trump will do that. He hasn't himself even commented on the expulsions. This was a statement put out by Sarah Sanders. We know last week in his phone call with Vladimir Putin, he didn't even bring up the chemical nerve agent attack. Instead, he congratulated President Putin on a sham election. I don't think Donald Trump wanted to do this, although I do agree it's a good step. I think it's a good move. They need more action. But Donald Trump has been so bizarrely unwilling to criticize Vladimir Putin and the Russians. He's much more willing to criticize our allies like the UK. And so I don't think there's going to be a change of tone from the president here, although I hope there will be. And you hear a lot of Republicans, particularly in Congress, who want him to be much tougher. I just don't think it's in his DNA. For some reason, he just likes them.
Lisa, who cares about the talk? He took the action.
Yeah, he took the, I mean, in my deportation pool, I didn't have the Russians as first. I had others as first. So, you know, I think that there's probably an instance where Democrats are always going to have the line about Russia, and I don't know if anything he can do, you know, short of starting war, but then that's not good either, right?
Right.
Okay, so
we agree no war. War's bad.
Yeah, so I think there's always going to be an issue that's going to hang over the president as far as how whatever he does with Russia, some people are going to think it's perfect diplomacy and some people are going to think it's wrong.
But Republicans in the party are criticizing him for not standing up. It would be a much more forceful move if he stood up and made these announcements, even the expelling, because Vladimir Putin is listening to Donald Trump and his words, because he knows Donald Trump runs the country, not Sarah Huckabee Sanders or whomever writes the statement saying this is happening. Because if Donald Trump, given his track record of sometimes contradicting his aides, goes out and says something next week that's favorable to Putin, then Putin hears the true signal, which is, I can keep doing this with impunity. The United States will not interfere.
Well, toughest action yet. There's a lot of different countries involved. Bringing on Bolton as National Security Advisor, I think it's all a good sign. Panel, sit tight for a minute. The Trump presidency has changed a lot of the rules in D.C. So will voters even care about a sex scandal? Let's go back to the panel. Marie, Evan, and Lisa. Marie, you've been giggling through this whole segment.
Come on. I mean, this is the president of the United States who, first of all, is the head of a party who for the last 30 years has talked about personal morality as the standard for leadership, and now they and their evangelical backers are okay with this. Let's just start there, which is very infuriating to me as an American. But further, Donald Trump could be in some trouble here. Legally, if he's deposed, if this goes to court and he has to be on the record under oath about what the truth is, he can't lie. And then thirdly, politically, I think female voters do care about this. And I think a lot of the 2018 midterms are going to turn on female, suburban, independent women. This matters to them. This whole gross scandal, not just her, but the Playmate, there's a number of them. It matters, and it could hurt his party in November.
Well, I was going to say Marie is actually right, but we're seeing it among female suburban white women who are married, and they are Republicans, and they've been going Republican in the past a few cycles. And they have turned on us, and we saw it in 2017, and we saw it in 2018 so far.
I do not buy that, Evan. I don't buy that. You're saying that
the data backs it up.
Not on this scandal. This scandal, it's going to be just like Bill Clinton. They don't
to the fire.
The media and Democrats are going to press this, Evan, and it's going to be just like Bill Clinton. They went after Bill Clinton. Do you know what? It was like 75% of the country supported Bill Clinton through that mess.
What we've been seeing in the data is that women have rejected the Republican Party. There is something visceral going on.
It's not Stormy Daniels.
It's not Stormy Daniels, but it's just another piece or a piece of log on the fire, and it makes them angrier and angrier and angrier. That's why the president's been quiet on this. Now, on that Stormy Daniels interview, the first thing that stood out to me is when she's told the story of the spanking, how he was only before it talking about himself, and then when she spanked him, he talked about others and actually was concerned about others. Stormy Daniels clearly needs to take over for John Kelly because she can refocus it. But I think Stormy Daniels did enormous damage to her own case, as did her lawyer yesterday, where they said, oh, well, I had other offers, but I chose to go with this one because I wanted to be fair to the president. And there was no intimidation. The threat came in 2011 at a gym or outside a gym in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And the statute of limitations for a threat, which is considered harassment in Nevada, is 2 years. This is over legally. She has no right.
The harassment piece.
The harassment piece.
I don't know
threat.
about this mystery guy in the parking lot. It seems like a Scorsese movie or something. But
well, no, it seems like a B-list mafia movie. Like, as an Italian American, I am not buying the
actually,
that's
as someone who's had his family threatened by the mob, that is exactly what they do.
It would be a shame if something happened to her mother. It did seem a little.
What Michael Cohen does, though. I mean, he has a history of playing sort of fast and loose, right? Donald Trump's attorney.
And he's also the worst fixer and lawyer I've ever seen.
Listen, do you think this will have any effect on Donald Trump? Stormy Daniels, I don't think the callers to my radio show today called in. They said, we knew what we were getting with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, this is not, I mean, to me, it would be a big story with evangelicals if it was Pence. But I think ultimately, as far as women.
He'll never break the Pence rule.
No, like I said on the radio show, this is just as surprising as if we found out Pence didn't do it.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. And it shows the Pence rule.
I mean,
it really does work.
As a suburban woman, GOP voter, I care more about that the omnibus passed. That hurts me more with the GOP than Trump.
I wonder if Mike Pence would, say that to the president. I told you. Dinner only with your wife.
Well, there have been reports that the Pences are horrified by this because Pence represents a key part of the Republican Party that used to be about personal morality, the evangelical, the religious right. This was a huge
That ship sailed with Clinton. They know it. They know it. The American public
part of my
is
party.
So cynical. They don't care about any of this stuff. The panel returns later. You know what society needs? A million mini Barack and Michelle Obamas. That's actually a real thing. The former President Obama said this weekend in Tokyo while discussing his post-presidential goals. Watch.
After I left office, what I realized is that the Obama Foundation could potentially create a platform for young, up-and-coming leaders. If I could do that effectively, then I would create 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 young Barack Obamas or Michelle Obamas or, the next group of people who could take that baton in that relay race that is human progress.
Are a bunch of Obama clones really the answer? The party panel is back. Marie Harf, Evan Siegfried, and Lisa DePasquale. Lisa! 1,000,000 Obamas? What do you think? A million Obama march?
It's almost like he wrote a fundraising letter for the GOP. Obama clones. 1,000,000 Obamas are coming. I mean, I wish that the president, I wish his foundation would maybe look outside himself. I mean, that's great. I mean, I understand he's a Democrat and he obviously wants active Democrats. But if for once he could just look outside himself and him not be like the pinnacle of like what an activist is,
Yeah.
would be nice.
You know, who do you think, this is a real question, Evan. It's a real question. Who is more egotistical, Barack Obama or Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
No question.
What building has Obama on it? I mean,
he has a different way.
Question.
A million Obamas.
I grew up in New York City, and from the early 80s on, Donald Trump was known as having the biggest ego in all of New York City. But I think
Which is
Obama,
massive.
Yeah, it's
Massive
bigger than the
ego.
Brooklyn Bridge. But what I think that President Obama was saying here that I will actually give him credit for is that we should be training the next generation of people to actually go out and try and lead and solve the problems that afflict the United States and the world. And we should be doing it for both conservatives and liberals. And if he were able to get conservatives out there and give them that training and that knowledge, I think that would help us as a party.
He
Because
won't. He has no interest in giving them that
but
knowledge.
wait a second. My generation of millennials, we don't want to be involved in government because we don't think it can get anything done because it's
Right.
all of stagnation. And if President Obama can use his foundation to train people on both sides of the aisle to go out and work together, he absolutely can.
He can.
Why should we shoot it down?
What he's doing, this is part of his initiative. We started it in the Obama administration. It was these young leader programs in Southeast Asia, in Africa, and in other parts of the country. It wasn't to train partisans. It was to train people in qualities of leadership. He was overseas.
Come on. No one believes that.
That's not true. That actually is one of the most cynical things you can say.
I'm cynical.
Of everything I worked on in the Obama administration, I think the thing that may have the most lasting impact around the world is these kids who are 10, 11, 12, who are told by a president of the United States they can be a leader in their country. That's not a partisan statement. And that's what he was doing in this speech in Japan. He was talking to young people around the world and saying, you can grow up to be president too. This was not a Democratic Party message, particularly in the context. I actually do think it's a very important thing he can do in his post-presidency that we should encourage.
And wouldn't you agree that the Republican Party would be well served if we could find our own type of versions of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, in that they can excite the base and bring over independent voters and make them feel like they are cared about.
Just
we
not-
need that.
That's what Trump did.
Yeah.
That's what Trump did.
I mean,
He brought independent voters on, and I mean, what does it say about your party if a billionaire, people like in the Midwest connected more with a billionaire than
You're
with?
talking about my party,
She's so
not his
right.
party.
Let's move to the next. I want to talk about Claire McCaskill. Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill is not looking to clone a million Hillary Clintons, partly because no one could afford all the speaking fees, and mostly because Hillary's attacks on Trump voters are making it hard for Democrats running in the states the president won in 2016. Take a listen.
For those of us that are in states that Trump won, we would really appreciate if she would be more careful and show respect to every American voter and not just the ones who voted for her.
It wasn't her first time speaking out against the people's pantsuit, and it won't be her last, because McCaskill's Republican challenger has already turned Hillary's latest roast of Trump voters into a new campaign commercial. We know it takes about $300,000 to get Hillary to speak, but what will it cost Democrats to make her shut up? Oh, Evan, should she go away? I mean, the Democrats don't want her anymore.
I think Claire McCaskill should file a complaint with the FEC saying she's giving an in-kind contribution to every Republican across the country. Hillary Clinton is doing something that Democrats don't want to happen, which is energizing a depressed GOP base. And when that happens, that decreases the wind in the sails of Democrats, because when the GOP base gets fired up, they turn out. And Hillary Clinton is one of those lightning rods who can throw gasoline on a dwindling fire. And I don't understand what she's trying to do now. Maybe she needs to go back in the woods and just wait there for Hansel and Gretel to come and deal with them.
Just take a walk. What do you think? You might agree. You seem to be nodding your head in agreement.
I do. I mean, this is the thing. It pains me to say this because Hillary Clinton is a historic figure, the first woman to be a major party nominee. And look, if I had lost to Donald Trump, I would want to do a lot of explaining too. I get where she's coming from, but she's not helping the party that she loves and that she's a part of. And so while I understand the instinct that she wants to explain, she's not being helpful. And I think that, it remains to be seen whether that will actually impact 2018. I think most people sort of have tuned her out at this point, hopefully. But she really does need to take some time. This isn't what John Kerry did. It's not what Al Gore did. It's not what Mitt Romney did. And I think that she needs to just take a break.
Yeah.
Which pains me to say because I have a lot of respect for her.
All three of them are the cure to insomnia, so I'm not entirely. So Hillary Clinton is at least a little bit more lively when she's broke compared
It doesn't
to Kerry.
pain you to say. Does
She
it?
needs an Obama leadership program to teach her how to be an effective leader, because everything that she's done so far has not worked.
Yeah.
Well, she's done a lot of things well in her life. I mean, she was a great Secretary of State. She was a great First Lady. She was a great
That's
senator.
debatable.
Well, I don't think it's actually debatable, but, you know, she did a lot of great things. She lost to the most unqualified candidate to be president in history.
Here we go.
Donald Trump. So, yes, she was a massive failure in 2016.
Here, I got a
agree.
question for all of you working stiffs out there. Do you hate your job? Hate how your job follows you home and how you're always checking your phone for your work emails? Well, people in one city may soon have the right to disconnect. A new bill proposed here in New York would give employees the right to unplug outside of work hours. It might soon be illegal for a company to require employees to access work email and all other communications outside of the office. Any employer found violating this law would have to fork over a $250 fine to the city and a $500 fine to the employee who filed the complaint. Is this a cool idea to give workers some free time, or is it laziness taking over? Marie, what do you think?
I love this idea. It's
You
like,
do?
Yes, it's like that scene in The Devil Wears Prada where she throws her phone into the. Okay, no one else has seen this movie, but yes, I think that we are overworked. We're attached to our phones. I have two sitting in front of me. It's not healthy. I don't think this law will work at all. I mean, you're not going to start fining people in New York City, the city that never sleeps, and we're constantly working.
Exactly.
But it's a good idea. It's a good thing to do for our sanity, to take a break from these things.
Well, but I mean, for an
No?
employer
Yeah,
to.
The thing is, I think it falls on the employee. I think generally, as a Generation X person, I'm only here one without a phone, but to me, I think it falls on the employee. I mean, if the employer trusts you, they're going to trust that you're getting your work done, even if you're not answering your phone or answering your email at 9 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
Or that you have a good reason, for not doing this. And I don't like that the city gets a portion of this money. And I mean, what would you do if you had the option of getting $500 for, complaining about a 9 p.m. email?
You'd complain.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's embarrassing that this is happening in New York City. I would expect it from Europe, Evan.
Seattle.
Yes.
I've had the misfortune of having to deal with the New York City Council, and the city councilman is a guy named Raphael Espinal. He's very young and he's very much to the left and thinks of himself as a great thought leader. And I could propose a bill myself that we ban unicorns from New York City as well. And that is about as realistic
Right.
as this bill itself. What this bill would actually do if it were implemented, which it will never be, is it would actually harm economic progress in the city. Because if you can't contact
Right.
an employee and say, hey, can you do this thing because we have a really important deadline or something really bad has happened, businesses will leave. Employees who are upset with a job where they have to answer email after 5 p.m., find a new job. It's up to them. It's their personal responsibility.
Yeah.
The government itself can't do this. The only explanation for this law is Raphael Espinal clearly only wants to talk to his constituents, who are his bosses, between the hours of 9 to 5 on Monday through Friday, because he doesn't want to go to a
Do you
prestigious
think he thinks
supermarket.
this is realistic? I think this is one of those.
I've seen city councilmen think
Like-
that space aliens are real.
Oh, right.
This is absolutely realistic. The New York
a
City
good
Council
concept,
could
right?
be
I'll tell you
lost on
one-
an island at sea,
One-
and New York would be better off.
Yeah, one place that could not deal is Fox News, because they got to email you and say, can you do Fox and Friends in the morning? And I say, yes, I'll be there.
I haven't gotten
Thanks.
that email.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Lisa, Evan, and Marie.